Right, welcome to Tao's take of the recent YouTube fight between Jake Paul and Nate Robinson. Now, I was quite excited about doing this one just because of the whole YouTube phenomenon thing. It's quite a contentious topic. A lot of people have a lot of strong views against it, especially inside the boxing world. They're not keen, but guess what? The YouTube world is keen as anything, and that's big money. So it's good business as well. But anyway, we will look at this from both angles, of course, and this is my unique perspective. So I'm going to start with the tail of the tape. We got Nate Robinson, 36 years old. To be fair, he's a young 36 years old. He's a former NBA superstar, slam dunk contest champion. No boxing experience that we know of. I don't know, he might have been in a gym when he was younger. Doubt it, put all the time into basketball. He had a great camp. He's got money. Do you know what I mean? He's a NBA superstar, probably a millionaire. So he's got he would have had the best preparation possible. Put it that way. Like no stone was unturned for Nate Robinson. However, it doesn't matter if you train with Floyd Mayweather. Your first fight's your first fight. And that's just that. She's lucky they weren't. I'm trying to think, were there crowds there? I don't think there were. But it's tough. Like, you could train all you want. You could be in the best shape ever. You could be like Mayweather inspiring, but until you've been in that spot and with those emotions, that fear, that place of fear, if you don't know if you can control it, it could overwhelm you. And well, it's kind of what happened. His opponent, well, say he was opponent, but Jake Paul, 23 years old. He's over 10 years younger. He's entering the prime of his life. And that's his second fight. So he's done this. He's done this before. And that also means that his brother Logan Paul, fought KSI. So he's been in the camp with him before he had his fight, which was against Enson Jib. I did actually watch that first round KO. And Enson Gibb talked a good game, I know he's supposed to, and didn't go his way. So this is Jake Paul's second fight, so he's had experience. And to be fair to him, he can fight. He can fight and he can box. And he looked good in there. Much to the sorrow of Nate Robinson, unfortunately. But anyway, so moving on. So that's how you got it. I don't even want to say experienced fighter in Jake Paul, but because it is only his second fight. His first fight did only go one round, but he knows what he's doing. He's a legitimate fighter. Nate Robinson, unknown quantity, stepping in the ring for the first time. Now, levels. So from watching the fight a couple times, this was a mismatch. On paper, it's not a mismatch. How many amateur fights when they start, or how many fights do you go to? If you watch boxing regularly, well, pre-COVID, when you can actually go to shows, etc., or even watch them on TV, you see mismatches all the time. Well, the worst when you go to amateur shows or uni shows, and you get one person who's had one fight, or probably had like 10 unlicensed fights, but he's not recorded, and someone who's also had one fight, but they're just completely different levels. It's hard to tell at that stage in their careers. So, how you could tell it was a mismatch? Nate couldn't deal with the psychological part of it. He was in great shape. He come in there, no doubt, if he had landed on Jake Paul, he'd have hurt him, anyone. But it wasn't. He got in there and he panicked. And at least when you panic, you go into the fight or flight syndrome. At least he didn't try and fly away. He stayed to fight. But he was rushing in, jumping in, charging, and Jake Paul, to his credit, kept composed, and just picked him off, and eventually knocked him out. And the knockdown was a good shot, good whipping right hand, caught him as he was coming down over his lead hand. So the fight itself, call a spade, it was a mismatch, but it was entertaining while it lasted. I think so to a degree, but then, so I probably have a bit of a sick mind, but I don't know, in terms of boxing, people have a lot to say. But the main thing people are kicking off about is the fact that I think it's a pro fight as well. But then even there, you have mismatches in professional boxing, seeing some horrific mismatches. You've got world level fighters, they'll fight some of like a few fights or someone they know they're going to blow out. And they do, but people shout about it, but people don't get too upset about it. It's the fight game. Like, you signed up for a boxing match. That's my point. So yeah, it's a pro fight. And I get why they hate it as well, because you could have someone who's put in the work and might never be pro, or just might not be feasible, but because they have the backing, the YouTube following behind them, it just makes sense. And if something makes sense, why not do it? So the haters are going to say, oh, it's dangerous. I mean, it was dangerous, got knocked out. And yes, but that can happen in any fight at any level. And who's to say Nate Robinson could have just easily walked in there and laid out Jake Paul? If Jake Paul had panicked, or not panicked, I can't see him ever panicking, but got sucked into a war. To be fair, he's quite composed. It could have been anyone's game. If that turned into an all-out brawl, it could have been anyone's game. And to be fair, Jake Paul did well to hold his composure and not let that happen. Nate Robinson tried to charge him again and again. Fair play, he was brave. Do you know what? His first fight, I don't think he has anything to be ashamed of. He lost in a terrible fashion, but he went out on his shield, and he got back up after 2 knockdowns, 1 slip, and he went out properly. Fair play to go. How I see it. So, how I see it. Nate Robinson, hats off to you, mate. You got in there. In terms of the YouTube phenomenon, I think it's good. I think it's good for boxing. All those people who tuned into it, how many of them probably couldn't care less about boxing normally, but yet because of these guys, they got some interest in it. They've pushed boxing up just a little bit in the mainstream community. And I think about, yeah, it's terrible, but I remember when I was doing amateur fights in the beginning, and they were like unlicensed shows, you get some people with like much worse mismatches than this. The only difference is these guys have a following, and these guys have also made serious money out of it. Nate Robinson, yeah, don't get me wrong, like, it's not a good place for him face down the canvas, but he got paid for this. Trust me, he would have. And he had a great camp and experience he got in the ring. Might even come again, who knows? And to be fair, he made the fight happen. He should be proud of himself. He got in there and he went out on a shield. But let's give credit to where credit's due. Jake Paul, you done well, mate. Nate, you got in there, gave it your best shot. Maybe no best shot, but your best shot on the night. They both made a spectacle. Thanks to them, thousands, if not millions, of viewers tuned in to watch the night of boxing. So, what more can you ask for? And they were the undercard to the Mike Tyson Roy Jones, so it just made sense. And then that meant they got the exposure as well. I know people have tuned in anyway because they are legends. But yeah, all round it made for a good night, if you're into that sort of thing. Anyway, peace out. Catch you next time. Like and subscribe.